What we have in this country right now are American citizens in the Republican Party defending tyranny, defending authoritarianism, defending a police state dictatorship. That's what they're doing because of pure politics. I want to show you a clip of, to me, this is one of the most detestable people in all of media. And when I tell you this man's name, you're probably going to agree with me. And you're probably not even going to want to watch the clip. But I hope that you do, because this piece of shit says a bunch of things in this clip that I want to talk about. And really, I didn't have to choose a clip with this guy. I could have picked any number of Republicans because they're all saying the same thing. And that's why I want to talk about the things that he says. If this was just him, I would ignore it. But he's saying what they're all saying. And there's a bunch of stuff in this clip. So I'm going to play this clip from Scott Jennings. Now, if you know who this guy is, you, I'm sure, agree with me about how loathsome this person is. Anyway, I'm going to show a clip from CNN. He was on that panel discussion program they have where the host is Abby Phillip. And I can't stand watching it. I don't watch it, but I do see clips of it. And I came across this clip, so I want to play it for you. Let me pull it up on the screen here. There he is, that douchebag. Does he not have the most punchable face you've ever seen in your life? I'm not suggesting that anyone do him any harm. Certainly don't punch him, but don't you want to? Anyway, let me play this.
I put you in a different category.
Sorry, let me start from the beginning.
Isn't this exactly what we denounce other countries for doing? Not giving our own citizens, when they get wrongfully detained around the world, our own citizens the due process that they deserve?
Well, I think multiple things could be true. Number one, I delineate between American citizens and everyone else. If you're a U.S. citizen, I put you in a different category.
Let me stop it right there. Before he says the rest of this crap, he says, I delineate between American citizens and people who are here illegally, or whatever the hell he said. I don't give a shit how he delineates. Is that what we should be discussing here on CNN? I think CNN is part of the problem in this country. Putting up a guy like this every night to lie to the American people. Who cares how he delineates? It's irrelevant how he delineates. They should be talking about what the law and the Constitution say, not what this guy's personal view is about how he delineates who should have due process rights under our Constitution and who doesn't. And see, the problem with the way CNN presents this stuff is he goes up there and says it as if that is a legitimate point of view about what the law says. Like that's a legitimate take on what the law is in this country. It's not. It's a lie. It's not a legitimate opinion about what the law is. Doesn't matter how this scumbag personally delineates who should have due process rights and who shouldn't. All right, let me go back to this guy. Here we go.
Different category.
On due process, that's not a distinction that the law makes.
Then if you've come here and broken our laws and committed violent acts or murdered and raped and whatever, I put you in a different category.
When it comes to the law and due process, that is not a distinction.
Well,
okay, Abby Phillip, of course, is exactly right here. But again, he's saying, I put you in a different category if you're an American citizen or if you came here in violation of our laws and raped and murdered people. Who says any of these people raped and murdered people? You know how we make that determination, Scott, you scumbag? We have a hearing in front of a judge. There has been no hearing. There has been no due process. That is what due process is for. No one is arguing in favor of allowing gang members and rapists and criminals who are here illegally to stay here. That's not the purpose of due process. And he knows this. Just Look at this guy's face when he's talking. He knows he's lying. He knows all of this. I've seen this guy many times. The facial expressions he's making here, he knows that what he's saying is complete and utter bullshit. But he's saying what he has to say, what he feels he has to say. Right? This guy, I guarantee you, is angling for his own show on Fox News. That's what this guy wants. Either that or a job in the Trump administration. That's why he goes out and says all of this crap. But they all do it. That's why I'm playing him, because he's representative of what they all say. All right, let me continue with this.
Well,
When
if
you were
if
here-
if
when
you'd
you
like
were-
to argue that Trinidad Aragua should have the
Scott,
same rights and
Scott,
that you get as an American
here's-
citizen,
here's-
go ahead.
here's-
All right, stop it again. This is what they do. This is how they frame it. If you insist on due process rights for everyone, because that's what our Constitution compels, that there is due process for everyone, whether you are accused of being a gang member or a terrorist or being here illegally or not. That's how we make determinations according to law as to who is here legally and who's not, who's committed a crime and who's not, who's entitled to these rights and who's not. It's due process. It's a hearing. It's forcing the government to prove their case. That's the basis of the rule of law. If you do not have due process, if you do not have judicial review, you have dictatorship. That is what Scott Jennings is advocating. And here, this is how they frame it. If you are arguing in favor of due process for everyone, then they accuse you of being in support of terrorists and Trinidad Aragua and all that. If you want to argue that Trinidad Aragua is entitled to the same rights as American citizens, no one's arguing that. Is anyone arguing that Trinidad Aragua gang members who are here illegally should be entitled to the right to vote and other constitutional rights that American citizens hold? No one's arguing that. The argument is the most basic, fundamental argument under our Constitution, which is the rule of law and due process. I hate these friggin' people. I swear to God, I hate these freaking people. All right, let me go back to this. Come on, move my stupid cursor. Okay, here we go.
I would change the Constitution.
Hold on a second.
Constitution
Scott,
argues
the
that.
argument
So
is
you're saying that a
if you-
terrorist can walk
Scott,
across the border and
Scott,
become effectively a U.S.
hello?
citizen?
That's not
Hold
what
on,
I'm saying.
hold on.
This is so deceitful. Again, I think it's disgraceful that CNN, if you can't argue honestly, if you can't debate honestly, why are you on there? Why is CNN paying this guy? No one is making that argument. Nobody. Yet he says it as if that's the case. So he goes up here night after night, lies. Lies about the law, lies about the Constitution, things that he knows are not true. Puts up straw man arguments to lie about what people are saying, to lie about the opposition to what's going on here. This is, he's entitled to say all this shit. He's not entitled, he doesn't have a First Amendment right to be paid for it and to get on air on CNN. CNN apparently has no standards. To me, they're a little better than Fox News to put this guy up. You can have someone argue the other side, argue any side of an issue, but you don't have to let people come on here and lie. All right, let's continue. I know a lot of you, by the way, I always get comments on the videos. Mark, you're gonna stroke out. Calm down. You're gonna have a heart attack. Maybe, but I don't think so. This honestly, this helps me relieve stress. It really does. If I couldn't, this is therapeutic for me, right? You guys listening to this is doing me a great service. I can get this off my chest and vent. And if I couldn't, I think I would explode. Anyways, let's go back to this douchebag.
Scott, look at me. Okay.
Yeah, let's give the host her
you and I are talking.
respect.
You and I are
Let's give her
talking.
respect.
Okay.
Let's not treat her
What I'm
disrespectfully.
saying to you is
Look at that smug face. He's trying to hold back laughter. He's thinking to himself, I know I'm full of shit. You know I'm full of shit, but you know I gotta do this, and I don't really care. I'm getting paid. I'm gonna get a big fat payday from Fox News, or I'm gonna get a call from Donald Trump any day to put me in his cabinet. So I'm just gonna sit here and say whatever shit I think is gonna get me in good with Fox News or Trump or whoever, and you guys can just keep being mad at me, and I'm gonna laugh all the way to the bank.
that the law does not make a distinction between U.S. citizens and everybody else when it comes to being accused of crimes. Are you saying that that should not be in place? That if you happen to not be a citizen, you get to be thrown into a jail with no process at all?
I'm saying that these people are effectively terrorists. They walked across our borders illegally.
Okay,
They are
doesn't
violent.
the
And I don't
government-
really want them
but
here.
doesn't the government?
And so how does Scott know that? How does Scott know that those people walked across the border and are terrorists? How does he know that? Because we know for a fact now that that's not the case with all of them. But how does he know that? Because Donald Trump said that? Because he made that claim? He put out a tweet and said they were terrorists? We make that determination by a process of law. Due process under the law to determine the facts. And then apply the law to the factual situation of each one of these people. That is what due process is for. He doesn't care. He just takes this dictator at his word that these people are all terrorists, therefore they should be, have no due process rights, and Trump can do whatever he wants with them. And we know for a fact that they're not all terrorists and gang members. As if terrorists and gang members, accused terrorists and gang members, aren't entitled to due process rights. When you don't have due process, what happens? Well, you end up illegally arresting and sending innocent people who have a legal right to be here to prison camps in El Salvador. I did a video recently, maybe it was my last video, I'm not sure the order of these videos that they're coming out, because I don't know exactly when I'm going to put this one up. But it's a video titled, This is a Police State. Please watch it if you haven't done so already. I talk about the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a man who was found by a judge to have legal standing to be here, gave him legal standing pursuant to our laws passed by Congress. He was here legally, he has an American citizen wife, an American citizen 5-year-old child who happens to be disabled, and our government, at the direction of this piece of shit dictator, arrested him illegally, did not take him before a judge, gave him no due process rights, took him from Maryland, immediately flew him down to a detention center in Texas as a staging area before being flown to a prison camp to be tortured in El Salvador. A man who is not a criminal, not a gang member, not here illegally. He had legal status in this country, but he was given no due process rights. Oh, and the administration acknowledged that he shouldn't have been deported. I don't like to use the word deported because this isn't deportation. This is kidnapping and rendition. That's what this is. Deportation is a legal process under our laws. There was no legal process here. This was not a valid deportation. This was a kidnapping. They admitted he was not here illegally and shouldn't have been arrested and sent to El Salvador. But they said, oops, nothing we could do about it now. That was a administrative error. The reason, Scott, you scumbag, that we have due process is to make sure that innocent people like Abrego Garcia aren't illegally arrested and sent to be tortured in a prison camp. That's why we have due process. Because the government doesn't always do the right thing. Sometimes the government is also incompetent and makes mistakes. Or as the DOJ lawyers told the judge, an administrative error. Sometimes, whether by malice and ill intent, or simply by incompetence and making mistakes, innocent people are arrested. It happens all the time. How many people are found not guilty of crimes they've been arrested and indicted for? Should we just not have trials in this country either? Should the police just be able to arrest somebody because they claim they committed a crime and send them to prison for the rest of their lives? I mean, that's part of due process. Guess we shouldn't have criminal trials either. All right, get back to this jerk. What else does this guy say?
Government have to prove that they are who they say they are.
Correct.
I
That's
think
all we're saying.
That's all.
I think.
I mean, you can say it.
Eventually-
it's not a concession that you like Tren de Aragua. It's just a question of the basics of civics in this country.
I think eventually the government will have to show all of its cards on everybody that they have detained, deported, or done anything to in this arena. But there is no doubt that the Trump administration is rounding up effectively terrorists who came across here.
All right, screw this guy. So Abby Phillip says to him, shouldn't we have due process so that the government is required to prove that these people are who the government claims that they are before we detain them, before we whisk them off to a prison camp? And what is Scott Jennings' reply to that? He doesn't have an answer. He just says, oh, well, I think that eventually the government will have to account for what they've done with all these people. For all the people they've arrested and deported. How and when is that going to happen? He's just pulling shit out of his ass here. He has no response to this. So he says, well, eventually I think the administration will have to account for what they've done with all these arrested and deported people. No, they won't. They told the judge in Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case, they told the judge, you don't even have authority anymore. He's not even in this country anymore. So you have no jurisdiction to even hear his case. So where is this accounting going to occur? If the courts, if they don't have to account for what they're doing in court, where exactly, Scott, do you think they're going to have to account for any of this? Court is where they account for this stuff. Court is where they're supposed to prove their case before doing to them what they think they are entitled to do to them. Whether that's confine them in a prison or to deport them or to send them to a friggin' prison camp. The courts, now, before you do those things to those people, is when we're supposed to have an accounting. Scott doesn't care. And that's the thing. None of these people care. It is all pure politics. Scott Jennings here and all of these Republicans who are so wrapped up in mindless partisanship that they are defending evil. That is what Scott is doing. He is defending evil. It is evil to arrest a man illegally. No due process, no opportunity to prove who he is, no opportunity to defend himself in a court of law, and send him to a prison camp in El Salvador to be tortured. That is evil. And then when you realize you made a mistake, for the government acting through the Department of Justice in a court of law to say, oops, we made a mistake. It was an administrative error, but we're not going to do anything to bring them back. And you can't make us because you don't have any jurisdiction. That is evil. That is what Scott Jennings is defending here. And what's even worse than Scott Jennings, and all the people like Scott Jennings, are just the regular American citizens who are defending this. Just your regular Fox News viewer who are defending this. Because Scott, I'm not defending this piece of shit in any way, but at least Scott has other motives as well for pushing this garbage. His other motives are monetary and professional. I don't know which. Maybe it's a combination of both. But I'm damn sure that he's angling for something. Either a big fat paycheck on Fox News or a cushy job in the Trump administration or something else. But he's angling for professional and financial reasons. Your average Trump voter watching Fox News night after night on their recliner, there's no money in it for them. There's no cushy job in the Trump administration for them. There's no job on some friggin' MAGA-owned board of directors somewhere. They're just doing it because they have bought into the evil and they just support evil for no reason other than pure tribal politics. We have tens of millions of people in this country who defend evil, support evil. They don't know that's what they're doing because most of them are too fucking stupid to know that that's what's going on, because they've been brainwashed day in, day out by Fox News and people like Scott fucking Jennings. This is what we have now. We have evil being perpetrated by our government, our lawless, unconstitutional government. This man isn't even qualified to be president. He is specifically, per Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, prohibited from being president, yet there he is. A convicted criminal insurrectionist, ruling like a dictator, being defended by fucking Scott Jennings and everyone else like him. Let me tell you something else and I'll end with this. I want you to think about this because I mean it. If Donald Trump started rounding up American citizens who disagree with him and systematically put them to death in concentration camps, there are tens of millions of his supporters who would cheer. I am not joking. I believe that 100%. And if you don't think that that's true, then I don't think you understand what's happening in this country, because it absolutely is true. People need to wake the hell up. And I know most of you who are watching this are already well aware. You know what's going on in this country. But so many people do not. What is it going to take? What is it going to take? The price of eggs to go up higher? Is it going to be their Social Security checks don't show up? Some other program from which they benefit being cut? Is that what it's going to take? For them to suffer some financial loss in their life? Maybe they can't go on vacation to a national park because it's been closed down and they've been inconvenienced. Is that what it's going to take? Because apparently, a lot of these people don't care that innocent people are being illegally arrested, kidnapped, and sent to a prison camp to be tortured in El Salvador. This isn't deportation. As I said, deportation is a legal process. This is an extra-legal process. This is an illegal process. This is an unconstitutional process. This is a process that is being done by a dictator outside of our laws and Constitution. There is a 5-year-old disabled child in Maryland and his or her mother who just had his or her father, husband, illegally arrested and sent to a prison camp in El Salvador. That's what we did to an American citizen wife and an American citizen child. Destroyed that family, destroyed this man's life. What's going to happen to him? Is he going to be murdered in a prison camp? He did nothing wrong. He fled violence. He had legal permission to be here. And the country that said he was under our protection sent him to be tortured, perhaps to his death in a prison camp. And there's tens of millions of people sitting on their couches tonight watching Fox News, cheering it. And they would cheer it if Trump came after you and put you in a prison camp to be tortured and killed. They would cheer that too. When the fuck are people going to wake up? Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I'll talk to you again soon.